Hi everyone, my name's Susan, and today we're going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Earth Day by going on a plant hike. So we're out here at Coffee Creek Watershed Preserve. It's a great place you guys can come and practice identifying some plants. So let's get going. When you're going on a plant ID hike, there's not too much you need to bring with you. One thing you want to try to bring is some kind of guide to help you identify the things that you see. It can be an actual book like this, you can get these from the library, or it can be a free app that you download on your phone or your tablet. If you don't have any of those, you could bring your nature journal or some paper and just draw the flowers you see or write down the features, and then you can take that home and research what you found later. Another thing you might want is some bug spray, a hat, a water bottle, any of those things that we would take on a normal hike. But you really don't need much more than your eyes when you're first starting out. You're just kind of seeing what plants you can find and what you can learn about them. So as always, when you're hiking, keep an eye out for other stuff you can see. So we're focusing on plant ID today, but there's always going to be other stuff you come across, like this deer who is currently eating breakfast. So you can see all kinds of cool stuff, even if it's not exactly what you're looking for. Plants are important for a lot of different reasons. One, they keep our air clean. They absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen so that we have lots of healthy air to breathe. They also produce a ton of food, not just for us, but for all the wildlife. So if we want to keep eating, we need our plants to be healthy. Plants are also used to create a lot of different medicines, so those also keep us healthy and can help us out. So we need our plants to be healthy so we can continue to have those. And then finally, walking around in nature is just good for you. It can help you relax, it can make you happier. So having areas with lots of plants, lots of woods, lots of wetlands to hike around in is just really good for us overall. So these are all different reasons we want to keep our plants healthy and keep them around. So one of the first plants you might want to learn how to identify, even though it's not one a lot of people like to see, is this one. This is poison ivy. You can see it has 3 leaves. This is hard to tell, but these are actually leaflets. So there's 1 large leaf and then 2 leaves off the side. It can either be on the ground or it can be a vine like this growing up the tree. The leaves are always going to look like this. They have some teeth on them, but not too many. There's going to be those 3 leaves. So leaves of 3, let it be. So this is one you want to identify. Generally in plant ID, you don't want to touch the plants because if you don't know a lot about them, you don't know which ones can hurt you. You're going to see me touch some of the plants in this video. It's only because I know what they are, and I'm trying to show you better on the camera what they look like. But in general, try to just use your eyes when you're doing plant ID. That keeps you safe and it also keeps the plant safe. So one thing that's easier about plant ID versus bird ID or frog ID is that the plants aren't going to be moving on you. They're not going to fly away, they're not going to hop away. So it gives you more time to really look at it and identify it and figure out its characteristics. This plant right here is a spiderwort. So some things we want to look at when we're identifying plants is the stem. Is it woody or is it herbaceous? Which means woody is more like tree bark and herbaceous is like this green here. The other thing we want to look at are its leaves. Does it have simple leaves or does it have compound leaves? A simple leaf means it just has 1 solid leaf. So this is a simple leaf here. And I'll show you a compound leaf a little bit later. The other thing we want to look at is how those leaves are placed on the stem of the flower or the plant. These leaves are placed alternately, so they alternate down the stem. The other way they could be is opposite. So actually this plant right here has opposite leaves. That's another thing you want to look at when you're looking at plants. And then just any other characteristics. Like here we would definitely look at the flower. And you can use your field guide, or if you have an app on your phone or your iPad or any tablet, those are also good characteristics to look like if the plant's flowering when you're looking at it. So again, this is the Virginia spiderwort. So this is the bird's foot trefoil. It has alternating leaves. They are compound leaves versus simple leaves. They have multiple leaflets on 1 leaf. They have these tiny yellow flowers. So this is a flower you're going to see a lot out here at Coffee Creek and probably just around in the area. Here is a common plant you're going to see in this area while you're hiking. This is a grapevine. The leaves are placed alternately on the stem. So there's 2 ways leaves can be on a plant. Opposite, so they're opposite each other, or they can alternate up the stem. So these are alternate. They also have really distinctive leaves, really wide, almost a little heart-shaped, and they have these toothy edges on them. And then they also have this nice purpley red stem. As this vine gets older and starts to grow up a tree, the stem's gonna get a lot more woody. It's gonna look more like tree bark as it gets thicker. But right now it's still this smooth purple because it's pretty young. So you'll probably see this out on your hike. A good one to learn how to identify. This plant is called crown vetch. It has this really distinctive flower, lots of petals, that purpley pink color. It also has something called a compound leaf. So the grapevine has a simple leaf, meaning there's just one leaflet on it. This, so you can still place alternately on the stem, has one leaf made up of a whole bunch of tiny leaflets. So another distinction between plants when you're identifying is looking at what kind of leaf they have. Simple versus compound. So this is actually an example of one of a threat to our native plants. This is called Asian bittersweet. It's an invasive species, meaning it's a species that came here from somewhere else and is starting to take over an environment. So maybe a plant we don't want to see too much of, but you are going to see it a lot, maybe even possibly in your own backyard. It has alternate leaves, go up the stem. It produces like a red-orange berry in the fall, and it has these sort of teardrop-shaped leaves. But this is going to turn into a vine. It will grow really tall. We'll get a woody stem, similar to the grapevine. But yeah, so this is an example of one threat to our native plants. Besides invasive species, some other threats to our plants are, like everything else, pollution. Pollution in the water, pollution on the ground, littering. These are all things that are going to hurt our plant populations. And another thing is just effects of people being around. So walking off trail, trampling plants, cutting down plants, picking flowers, in places like nature preserves. Those are all going to hurt our plant populations. Some plants take a really long time to recover, and things like that can really damage the plants in the ecosystem for a long time. Alright, so here's a really cool tree. This is called the pawpaw. It likes growing in shade, so you can see the area we're in right now is very shady. Again, looking at the leaves, they alternate up the stem, and these are very obviously simple leaves. There's just one huge leaflet. It also has some, the end of a stem is called the terminal bud, which is the end of the stem on a tree. This one has a very soft, almost like a paintbrush bud at the end. A story about that is, if you know the artist John James Audubon, there's sort of a legend that when he was out painting in the field, if he ran out of paintbrushes, he would grab one of these and start painting with that. I don't recommend you do that. It's best to leave those on the tree, but that's kind of a fun story about it. Also, this plant produces a fruit. It's about this big and it's green, and a lot of people call it the Indiana banana. It has kind of a banana-y texture. I don't think it tastes much like a banana, but it does produce a fruit in the fall. These are pretty young, so I don't think they would produce fruit, but they're really great for wildlife, so we really want to leave that fruit out here for the wildlife to eat. This is a Fleabane. You can see its flowers have lots and lots of tiny little petals. Looking at its leaves, they alternate up the stem. It's got an herbaceous stem, it's got a green stem, but these flowers are really, really distinctive. It also has single leaves, really these thin, long, narrow leaves. So this is a very important plant for our area. This is a common milkweed plant. Eventually it is going to get a purple flower on top of it. But the reason this is so important is because this is food for monarch butterfly caterpillars. Butterflies are a really important pollinator for our area, for the whole world. So having plants that they need to lay their eggs on and have their caterpillars eat is really important. So this is a great plant to have here. It's a great plant to have in your yard. The reason it's called milkweed is because if we were to break one of these leaves off, or if it got damaged, the sap coming out is white. It looks almost like Elmer's glue or like milk, which is why it's called milkweed. But again, very important plant for monarch butterfly caterpillars. There's an ant on it right here, so an important plant for that ant too. So here is a plant that some people don't like to see, but I actually really enjoy these. They're one of the first plants you're going to see in the spring. Bees like these plants. This is a dandelion. I'm sure you guys have seen these before, probably in your own backyard, or the area where you live. The big reason it's called dandelion is because of the leaf. The leaf has a lot of teeth on it, and dandelion means tooth of the lion. So I think it has a pretty cool name too. Here's a tree that's pretty common for this area. Some of you might have this in your own backyard. This is a walnut tree. So again, we're gonna look at the leaves. We know because it's a tree, it's got a woody stem, right? It's got bark. But the leaves on here, they are, you can see, alternate. And they also have leaflets. So we have these leaves here coming off the stem. And then the actual leaf is made up of a bunch of little leaflets, compound leaf. Fun fact about walnut trees, if you are growing tomatoes in your yard, you do not want the walnuts to fall by the tomatoes because they actually have a chemical in them that will hurt the tomato plants. So if you do have a walnut tree in your yard, maybe don't plant your garden right next to it. But these are really important trees with this area because they produce walnuts, they produce a lot of food for wildlife. So what are some ways you can help plants? It's the same way you can help everything else, just keeping the environment clean. This helps not just birds, not just frogs, not just plants, but the entire ecosystem. Keeping the water clean, not littering, these are just really helpful for the environment overall. Another thing you can do is, just like we talked about in the hiking video, stay on the path. There's a lot of plants when you step on them that take a long time to recover. There's a lot of rare plants. There's a lot of native plants that a lot of animals need. And if you walk off the trail, you might crush some of them, and then you're damaging that ecosystem for the rest of the things that live in it. And then finally, planting native plants in your yard. Places like this do a lot of work to help native plants. They do a lot of work to keep invasive plants out. And if you keep invasive plants out of your yard too, you're reducing the amount of seeds that are going to get spread around your area, and you're just going to help out the entire environment, including our plants. I hope you guys had a great time learning about why plants are important, different ways you can help plants, and just getting to see some of the common plants we have around here and getting a chance to start to identify some. There are a lot more plants than what I showed you today, so I encourage you to really get out and try to do some plant ID yourself if you're able to, and I hope you had fun. Thank you so much.